is considered to be more on the likely, less like coyote or canine. Could be a Bigfoot howl. This is the Ohio that you hear on BFRO and on Finding Bigfoot, they'll call blast. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that. It has a little tinny sound to it, because that's I don't like to use filtered recordings if I can help it, because it sounds metallic to me. It is a pretty effective call blasting method, and there are other people. You can use these recordings, by the way, put them on your cell phone if you have a smartphone, move the files, you can keep a bunch of them on your phone and play them for people you're interviewing, for witnesses or possible Bigfoot activity. I've played recordings on my phone and let them hear different styles, and they'll pick one out that stands out to them a lot. I mean, it's worked a couple times already. I've started using that technique this year. I played that one for a witness on the Sabine River in East Texas, and that's, out of all the ones I played, that's the one he picked out to what he'd been hearing. So he's got some rather interesting tales. He thought he was being stalked by a cat, but once he described his story of this thing busting all the branches and screaming and running at him after all of his feed being taken out of his deer feeder, and all these stories, I said, that's not a cat. It's stealing your deer feed. It chased you, broke branches and screamed and ran towards you and almost directly to you and stopped and then went sideways through the branches. That was a Bigfoot. Described the classic bluff charge without ever studying the subject. So I knew I had a good spot to do some research.
What are we reporting?
I know we had someone or something crawling around out here.
Did you see who it was? Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glance and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man or something looks like a man. I don't know what it was. Just it ran across the yard.
Okay. You've had problems in the neighborhood before?
Yeah, my dog was killed here just recently. I don't know what it was. Whatever it is, it's running. I couldn't catch it if I was going to chase it. Or whatever it was that was standing up. I'm out here looking through the window now and I don't see anything. I don't want to go outside. Jesus Christ, you better... Sheriff, Neil!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh. Okay, hang on.
He's right there.
Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
He's looking at me.
And the guy is on foot.
I don't know what, he's a big, real big person, that's all I can say.
Okay, but it is a person.
Yeah, I'd say it was a person, somebody really big. But he's all in black.
Is he a black male or a white male? Did you actually see with it, or was he just wearing black?
He's all black and he's big. He is big.
So, many of you have probably heard that, but that's a very popular 911 call. It's a real 911 call. And you can tell the guy's pretty excited, and you can figure out the rest, that he was having an encounter live on the phone. So it's just another aspect to consider audio, not just for trying to record animal recordings. You can record your night hikes, you can record interviews with witnesses, you can play the sounds when you're interviewing someone, and also just consider that's, it's still audio, it's, even though it's a 911 call. So that's what we call a whoop. That's the original description of what a whoop call was. There are variations on the whoop that maybe an Oklahoma whoop might sound a little different, or that's just what we researchers are calling that, a whoop versus a howl versus a scream. But that's, when somebody says whoop, this is kind of the default whoop in the Bigfoot community. I will say when I first started doing audio recording with my parabolic dish at the Trinity River, I picked out a recording. I just had it facing towards the river, and I picked up faintly because of the distance. I heard something going off, and I actually, in my recording, I picked up a whoop exactly like that one, and that one was recorded in 1973 in Washington State. And here it was, 2000, I guess it was 2009, 2010 that I recorded a little snippet of exact duplicate of it, along with some long moaning howls and such that were going off that night. I just could only wish the recording was closer to my dish to be of better quality, but it wasn't. A lot of times you can only really review it in your microphone's headset in a quiet room and really pick out a lot of things. Not all of it's worthy of presentation in an outdoor setting like this, but it's still very personally fulfilling to do this stuff. Well, anyway, this happened last fall close to my house. We're listening to the headset. My buddy hears something. I stand up and hear it's watching us from the creek. I could play that again, but basically my friend Mike was using a headset and handheld parabolic, and he was hearing something moving in the woods. It was getting my attention, whispering softly that it was that direction, just hardly 30 yards up the creek where the bend in the creek was from that corner in the woods. And I just happened to step up because I was sitting on the wood bridge. And the moment I stood up, whatever it was, I think it was already leaning against a tree or some dead branches because it must have had its weight on it. And when I stood up, assuming it's watching us, because we'd been there for hours, the limb gave out and broke, and it fell in the creek and splashed about. And then it stopped, and it never said a sound. And then after it paused, bipedal sound of it walking out of the creek. And granted, if I could do that over, I was kind of stunned at the moment. When we have stuff like that happen when we're recording, we've trained ourselves to get quiet so we don't distort the recording while it's going on, because it'll just ruin it. But at the same time, you're freezing because you're in awe, because there's possibly a Bigfoot 30 yards from me and it fell in the creek, and I'm a little freaked out at the moment, you can understand. But I even had my headlight thing on my forehead and didn't reach up to turn it on while it was happening. It's disappointing to me because, like Robert, I've heard them close to me multiple times, haven't had a good visual yet. I've had other people see one while they were with me. Still haven't got to have a good visual.
You're talking about Stillwell, aren't you?
Well, that too, yeah. And the previous, that winter deal where we had the nice whoops in the creek and everybody else looking at it, P-treeking at us, and I just couldn't quite make it out in the dark, and we could have just walked right to it, but we were kind of at a distance in our group. We'd heard it walk across the creek, and so once again, I could have turned my light on, probably could have got my visual, but I was a little bit surprised, needless to say, of something making that much racket right up on us. But it was, and that, by the way, that night, it was warmer weather. I think it was last September. I did a recording there, and that's when my recorder actually ran the entire 24 hours, and I came back. It took a long time to go through that audio, but that night, some other people showed up at that bridge in the middle of the night, like at 1 or 2 in the morning, probably been drinking beer and relieving themselves and whatnot and cutting up. Well, you could hear on the recording when the vehicle leaves, like when my vehicle left, then hours go by and you're hearing water splashing and normal wood sounds. When the other vehicle was approaching, because you could hear it creeping up. It's a dirt road to get to this location, this blocked off, washed out bridge. You could hear something on the recorder. I heard the sound of a grunt as the vehicle approached, almost like out of disgust or a warning that something was coming. But once again, I heard a primate sounding sound. It wasn't raccoon chatter. I heard kind of a little soft grunt as the vehicle approached. And then they were doing their thing for a couple minutes. Well, they hear some stuff. I don't know if they saw anything, but they got freaked out and ran off. They got scared by something. They were hearing, I don't know if it was cows or something else was howling, but they got scared and ran off. When the vehicle left, there was also a departing wood knock, and also with my own vehicle leaving, a small little wood knocks had been caught on that tape. So basically there was like warning and departures, approaching and departing vehicle sounds that could be Bigfoot warnings from something, humans approaching the territory. And had all of it that night. And I had some other miscellaneous sounds, all kinds of animals, hogs, and you just wouldn't believe it. It was just a really busy night. You wouldn't. Oh, and on top of that, I'm not a ghost hunter, but I found basically what's an EVP in that night too. At like 11 o'clock at night, dead silence. And I picked this up just going through on my headphones, and it sounds like a little girl's asking for her mommy. And I picked it up twice. I could set it twice. And then later on, I find out when I started digging around that location in 1977, there was an unsolved case of a little girl that was found drowned in the creek. There was possibly a murder, unsolved, unidentified, never identified the person. Just a little girl died in that creek. And not saying it's anything, but I just found this weird recording, and then later found this information in the creek about a sad tragic event of a little girl the same age the voice sounds like. But I'll leave that for y'all. That's not my area of expertise. So, why is it doing that?
I think your laptop.
I had more. Accept that it's two guys interacting with two forest fellas that sound like Japanese samurais living in the California mountains in the early 70s. Have to figure that one out. And also thanks to my friends at Texel Research, because they've taught me a lot about audio research. It's one of their specialties. Besides also the hair sample they have that was mentioned earlier that it did come from Oklahoma. And it is in the current DNA study with Dr. Kitchen as well. It's one of the confirmed samples. That's all I can say about it. They're under non-disclosure agreements on what they know until it's all released to the public. So. And then, of course, the most important thing to remember in your audio research and all your Bigfoot research is have fun.
No, as a matter of fact, there's a family of Sasquatches headed your way. Get in the car and lock the doors. They are pissed and hungry. They want the bacon and the hot dog.
That's all I got.